Welcome into the Action Network podcast. We are presented by FanDuel. This is your Oscars Best Bets episode with the 95th presentation of the Academy Awards taking place this Sunday night at the Dolby Theater in Los Angeles. Today's guests, two Oscars betting experts here at Action Network, Collin Whitchurch and Matt Roembke, plus an additional best bet from our Director of Talent, Katie Richcreek. That's coming up later at the end of the show. Quick reminder, I can understand that some of you might be like, when is the football talk coming back to this podcast? Understandably so. Our first NFL draft betting episode is coming. It's releasing Thursday morning, which is tomorrow for our interest. Today's Wednesday. So dry your eyes. NFL betting talk is back. We'll have NFL betting talk every week leading up to the draft next month. And we'll work in some free agency and training camp stuff and reporting, et cetera, quarterback movement. So that's coming. We understand that you might be looking for that. So our NFL draft episode coming out tomorrow morning, our first one. And also, we're going to talk Oscars today. As a reminder as well, we will have the Academy Awards betting preview with Chris Raybon and Colin Wilson, which dropped earlier in the week on the Action Network podcast. So if you need more, that's available too. 9 total best bets. We take a deep dive into the action, ripping right through. Collin Whitchurch, we will start with you, my friend. What do you got?
Yeah, my favorite bet for probably the entire show is for best documentary feature. That is Fire of Love at plus 330. This is always one of the tougher categories to predict. We've got a pretty strong favorite this year in Navalny, but I think Fire of Love is a live underdog. The Film Editors Association gave out their annual awards just this past weekend. The Ace Eddie Awards, Best Edited Documentary, went to Fire of Love. And the last 8 times that the Ace Eddie Award winner was also nominated for Best Documentary at the Oscars, that film went on to win Best Documentary. Now, historically, the best predictor of Oscar success beyond that is the BAFTAs. The BAFTAs have been right 3 of the last 4 years. The BAFTAs gave their award to Navalny. Last year, they gave it to Summer of Soul, which won Best Doc. 2 years ago, My Octopus Teacher. They've aligned more often than not the last couple of years. The other documentary awards show that people kind of focus on are the IDAs, the Independent Documentary Association. That went to All That Breathes, which was kind of a shock because All That Breathes is even a long shot than Fire of Love. However, 4 times in the last 11 years, the best documentary at the Oscar has gone to neither the IDA winner or the BAFTA winner. It happened in 2019, 2017, 2013, and 2011. I think we get it again here in 2013. Ben Zauzmer, the Oscar math guy, you might be familiar with him on Twitter. He writes every year, breaks down the math behind the Oscars. He gives Fire of Love a 31.6% chance of winning, which is just slightly behind Navalny's 34.3% chance. That odds imply Fire of Love should be plus 215, so plus 330 is great value. I think that this is a category ripe for an upset, so Fire of Love plus 330. That's my favorite Oscar bet of the entire show.
Love it. Matt Roembke, I'm looking forward to your pick because the angle you're taking, it almost has like my name in it, except it's Gleason, not Glasheen. Anywho,
yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. No.
I mean, I just want to get that out there to the people listening. Is wait a minute, is this guy actually involved in this particular award show? That is not true, everybody, but go ahead, Matt.
The fix might be in that something we'll never be able to know. I'm happy to make my Action Network podcast debut. Talking about movies. Talking about movies today. And I'm going to be focusing on some of the closer races we have at the Oscars. And my first one's going to be Best Original Screenplay. And my pick is going to be Banshees of Inisherin at plus 100. Betting against favorites is very tough at the Oscars. People who know that favorites dominate this thing. Over the past 2 years, favorites are 38-8 in all major award categories, and Everything Everywhere All at Once deserves to be the favorite in this category. I'm not saying it doesn't. It's the most artistic, dramatic, and Oscar-worthy version of the multiverse story we've gotten lately. But at the end of the day, the multiverse plot point is front and center in not one, but 2 of the comic book movie studios. It is popcorn's favorite plot device. And they took a fascinating idea and told a fascinating story. Banshees of Inisherin, I think, had a more challenging task. They had a story about two grown men who simply don't want to hang out anymore. And they somehow made that incredibly fascinating. The whole movie feels like a trance because the conflict is weirdly childish, kind of stupid, actually. And it slowly becomes a deep-rooted emotional roller coaster. It's a close race here. I think what Banshees did with simplicity is more impressive to me than what Everything Everywhere did with creativity. At plus money, I'm going to put my money in Ireland for this one.
Okay, let's go back to Collin. What do you have for us? Your second pick.
Well, I think the sequel to Banshees of Inisherin is going to be we've got Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson not becoming friends anymore. So the next one's going to be Brendan Glasheen and Colin Whitchurch and how they don't like each other anymore, because we're going to be appearing on podcasts a little less frequently this year. But I digress. I do want to talk about Banshees of Inisherin a little bit and how it pertains to the Best Picture and Best Director races, particularly the Best Picture race. Now, I want to be clear before I go on to this little spiel. Everything Everywhere All at Once is most likely going to win Best Picture. It should win Best Picture, in my eyes. Any bet against it comes with a giant warning sign. However, the Oscars are far from a guarantee, even with a film with as much momentum as Everything Everywhere All at Once. The cautionary sign I look to if I'm going to throw Everything Everywhere All at Once and its minus 1100 number or whatever into parlays and whatnot, all you have to do is look back to the 2005 year with Brokeback Mountain against Crash. Brokeback Mountain had the identical momentum that Everything Everywhere has. It swept all of the preceding award shows. It won from the Producers Guild. It won from the Directors Guild. It won at the BAFTAs. The only award it didn't win is the Screen Actors Guild. Now, Everything Everywhere did win at the Screen Actors Guild. It won the SAG, the PGA, and the DGA. Never before have those three awards agreed and the award gone to someone else. Now, those three have all gotten it wrong before, but it was when they disagreed themselves. I digress a little bit here. My point is, if Everything Everywhere All at Once is going to get upset, like Brokeback Mountain got upset by Crash, it's going to be because of this older, wider electorate at the Academy just doesn't vibe with this film as much as it probably should. So plus 1100, Banshees of Inisherin. It's something I'm willing to dabble with a little bit, maybe place a very small wager, just sprinkle it a little bit. Yeah, Matt. Just in case there is an upset to be had. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it should happen, but the math says that it might be worth a play. It might be worth your consideration because upsets happen at the Oscars sometimes. And as much as I want Everything Everywhere All at Once to win Best Picture, and as much as I think it should, and I think it will, it's not a guarantee. It's not as much of a guarantee as you might be reading out there.
Okay, so we'll toss to Collin now for his next pick. What do you got?
Yeah, my next best bet is Best Original Score, and it's All Quiet on the Western Front at plus 175. Babylon is actually the favorite here, and Ben Zosmer, who I mentioned earlier, gives it about a 30% chance of winning, with All Quiet checking in right behind it at 21.7%. This is actually a wide open race. Babylon again at 30%, All Quiet 21.7%, and then you have the Fablemans there at 19.3% and Banshees at 18.2%. This is the one where the math doesn't necessarily add up. Plus 175 doesn't mesh with the 21.7% chance that All Quiet is given by Ben Zosmer, but it's a bet against Babylon more than anything else, because Babylon is only 30% chance to win as the favorite, but it's minus money favorite. I just don't think that makes sense. And in a wide open race like this, that means that an underdog is more likely to win. So I'm going to go with the most likely underdog, if that makes sense. All Quiet on the Western Front plus 175. That's my bet there for Best Original Score.
Matt Roembke, you're going to go to, we haven't talked Black Panther yet. You have an angle on this particular film.
Absolutely. This is where I'm in my pocket. This is where I'm in my zone talking about the MCU. I'm a child. This is my favorite type of movie. I've grown up with the comic book genre my entire life from the 90s to now, and to see Angela Bassett be nominated for Best Supporting Actress as Queen Ramonda in Black Panther Wakanda Forever already is such a win for the fan base. But my pick is Angela Bassett, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever at plus 130. And, the nomination's already so big, but what makes this special is the weight behind it. The passing of Chadwick Boseman a handful of years ago was so sudden and so impactful. And, speaking for the nerd community, leading into Wakanda Forever, the only thing we talked about was how are they going to make a sequel to one of the most important comic book movies ever made, but also pay an appropriate tribute to Chadwick Boseman. All the actors had a challenge with this. I think everybody handled it well, but you watch Angela Bassett as Queen Ramonda in this movie, it's cathartic. It's a perfect blend of sadness and happiness, anger, acceptance. Somehow she was able to find the exact emotion needed to handle the challenge that was this movie and the emotional weight behind it. So I'm going to give her my nod here in a very close race because I think there's so much impact behind her performance this movie. And also she did it with the shoulders of a 2009 Dwight Howard. She is absolutely ripped in this movie, and that alone gets her my vote.
Collin, you have another angle on All Quiet on the Western Front. What would that be, my friend? Because you have another way you can play this.
Yeah, we're going back to the screenplay category. Matt talked about original screenplay earlier. I'm going to adapted screenplay, and this is probably the most fascinating category of the entire show, only because the top two contenders, All Quiet on the Western Front and Women Talking, haven't squared off at all in award season, because all the different award shows have different eligibility rules for screenplay nominations. Every single award show before that, either one of them wasn't nominated because it wasn't nominated, or one of them wasn't nominated because it wasn't eligible. The Oscars is a very strange animal with adapted screenplay with its eligibility for this. For example, any sequel is automatically an adapted screenplay, even if it's an original thought, because it's technically adapted from its original piece of work. That's why Top Gun Maverick is an adapted screenplay. That's why Glass Onion is an adapted screenplay. That's why Avatar would be an adapted screenplay if it had been nominated. However, going back to the original point, this is essentially a two-horse race right now because none of Living, Top Gun Maverick, or Glass Onion has more than about a 5% chance of winning. This is Women Talking against All Quiet on the Western Front, and Women Talking has a ton of momentum right now. It won the USC Scripters Award this past weekend. It won at the Writers Guild. However, All Quiet wasn't nominated by the Writers Guild, and All Quiet won the BAFTA. The last two times the Writers Guild and the BAFTA disagreed, which it did in this case, it went to the BAFTA winner. And I think that trend continues here. The BAFTA has correctly predicted the Oscars in each of the last 5 years and 6 of the last 7 years, with the only exception coming in 2016. If the trend continues, the Oscars agree with the BAFTAs. All Quiet on the Western Front has the momentum here. It's actually been moving in Women Talking's direction. So now All Quiet on the Western Front is plus 180, and I think there's good value there.
One more from each of you. We'll go to Roembke, and then we'll wrap with Collin, and then our special pick from Katie Rich Creek.
Absolutely. I'm going to go to best film editing, and a little bit of a personal pick here for me, but I don't really care. It's Top Gun Maverick at plus 175, going back to the well, another underdog, another blockbuster. Again, the favorite here is Everything Everywhere All at Once. And again, a very worthy favorite in this category. My argument against it is actually really similar to my argument in the best original screenplay category. The idea of the multiverse lends itself to creative and fantastic editing the same way a biopic role lends itself to a best actor nomination, one way or the other. I think Top Gun Maverick as an underdog here has a little bit of juice. It just has such a big screen charm to it. And the editing plays such a role to that, capturing the 80s vibes, being in the cockpit with all the pilots. But for me, it's the scene with Val Kilmer, and it's the way that they have two iconic actors talking to each other. One of them can't even speak. The way that they use the text on screen, letting both Cruise and Kilmer eat. Like I said, a little bit of a personal pick just because I really do think the editing brings so much weight to this movie in a blockbuster kind of way.
All right, Collin, what do you got?
I've actually got 2 more picks here, but I'll roll through them real quick because they're both kind of boring math plays. Best cinematography for Elvis plus 340. Ben Zosmer's Oscar math gives it a 27.9% chance of winning, which implies odds of plus 258. So plus 340 is good value. The favorite there is All Quiet on the Western Front, a movie that I've talked about quite a bit already. It's minus 340, which would imply a 77% chance of winning. but it's only been being given a 48.4% chance of winning by Ben Zausmer's model. I want you to keep in mind, I'll do a little bit aside here. I want you to keep in mind that when you're betting underdogs at the Oscars, you're not going to win as often as you lose. I think that's the case with any betting. Ben Zausmer's model correctly predicted the favorite in 19 of 20 categories last year. The favorite is going to win more often than not. However, this year's show is a little bit more wide open, with favorites getting less than 50% odds to win. So that's why we're looking at a lot of underdogs here. The other underdog I'm looking at right now is Best Original Song, Lift Me Up by Rihanna at plus 430. I know Collin Wilson and Chris Raybon talked about this as one of their favorite bets the other day. I am on board here, despite the fact that I will be aggrieved and I will be devastated if Naatu Naatu does not win Best Original Song, because RRR and that song fucking rule. Naatu Naatu's at 45.9% based on Zausmer's model, but at minus 430, you'd expect it to be more around 80% of the time. Lift Me Up is obviously a more critical acclaimed song. It's by Rihanna. Everyone's familiar with Rihanna. Everyone loves Rihanna. It's at 20.1% by Zausmer's model, which implies plus 400. So there's a small edge there on the Rihanna song. I'll be sprinkling that while hoping I lose my money because I want to see RRR get the credit it deserves.